This shop's one of a kind. We never know what might turn up. Some days, it could be a grand old classic. Other days, maybe a muscle car, even a military vehicle. Some jobs are quick fixes. Others are full-blown restorations. And on occasion, million-dollar recreations. My only rule, perfection. And that's the kind of thing that we do at the Guild Garage. Janice and I are attending one of my favorite events of the year. It's the Concours d'Elegance at Pebble Beach, and it has a lot of satellite events around us, and my absolute favorite of those is the Tour d'Elegance, and that is where a lot of the cars that are going to be at the Concours on Sunday assemble and then head off on a 72-mile-long cruise. It shows the vehicles being vehicles rather than just being as objects of art, and I like them in both ways, but it's nice to see them in their natural element. I really like this. Pebble Beach is an immense event with, literally hundreds and hundreds of cars, but, every now and then there's one particular car that, as it goes by, it just takes your breath away. This is a 1915 Packard, and it was actually a long wheelbase car that was modified by its owner in 1915. Wheelbase on cars is the distance between the center of the back wheel and the center of the front wheel. The main reason for having a long wheelbase car is just to give the car more room for its occupants. I mean, the charm this car has is the fact that it's completely original. It served as a pace car during the early days of racing, and it is the way that it was in 1915.
Would you like to see the engine on this?
I would love to see the engine on this.
So,
oh, look at that. Aren't they brilliant?
when I first saw this car 25 years ago, I fell in love with the car, but I didn't know anything about the history. I mean, it's an amazing car by itself, but when you find out what the history of it is.
That always adds so much to them.
So when you grab that steering wheel, you're grabbing the DNA of the guy that built the first road across this country, built the first high-speed track.
Packards were one of the most prestigious cars built in North America in the First World War and leading right up to the beginning of the Second World War. Henry Joy headed up Packard starting in around 1901, and he developed the cars from single-cylinder right through to 12-cylinder monsters. He also helped create the first coast-to-coast paved highway in the United States.
He built this. This was his personal hot rod. So it's the only car like this ever built. He took a long wheelbase chassis and shortened it. He took the engine and moved it back in the chassis. Extensive use of aluminum to keep it lightweight. Staggered racing seats.
Absolutely astounding. So far, my absolute hands-down favorite at this event. Ed Fallon's a good friend of mine, and it's his Voisin, and he invited Janice and I to ride along.
This is a 1924 Avion Voisin C4S Sport Tourism. It's the only one that we know that exists in the world. The car is all original. It's original body, chassis, engine. I spent 1.5 years working on it every day, so I've touched every nut, bolt, wire, you name it on it. We did everything on the car as it would have been delivered new from the factory. So there's no staples in the upholstery, for instance. Everything is hand-tacked. All the wiring is as it was done. The nickeling on this car, there's nickel, there's German silver, there's copper, there's aluminum, there's steel. The paint that you see on the car is what they call écossais. Voisin at the time did kind of like a window painting. Some cars actually were painted almost in a plaid type paint job. It sets a car off and it's very typical of the time.
You know, the Tour d'Elegance is a tour. It's not a competition. There's no racing. Nobody gets points for finishing ahead of anybody else. It's just about getting from the beginning to the end so that you can have lunch in Carmel.
There she goes. She be running now.
This is Larry's 1937 Cord. It's a supercharged car, and it's one of the last models that has ever been made by the Auburn Cord Duesenberg company before the doors closed in 1937.
This car really came out in 1937. They basically all had just 3 gears. This is 4 gears, which puts it into overdrive and then kicks into the supercharger. So it's really neat. It's a really cool machine, and it's been like hidden away for all these years.
The 812 model is actually really revolutionary. It was one of the first front-wheel drive model cars ever, It had a coffin nose hood, which was unheard of back in the 30s, with wonderful pipes coming out of the hood. Larry just has some transmission problems, but right now we're focusing on the shifter column.
I drove it around the block, it handled beautifully, and then when I went to try to back it up, the reverse wasn't working. Then I popped it into first and it wasn't working. So I had to put it in second and drive around the whole backyard and come back out again.
Brad has taken the cord under his wing.
So this is your shifter for the car. People say, well, how can it be a shifter? So you would, you have first, second, third, and fourth, and your reverse. So your steering wheel is here, this is your shifter. People say, well, how does that work? Inside here, there's a switch, and it's got multiple little selections. So when you select reverse, it hits two little terminals together and sends a signal to the pump. The pump lets the fluid come through, goes into this little box here. The vacuum chamber actually sits in, it's bolted in here. And when you switch the little gear shift electronically, it sends the message. It moves this back and forth, which is hooked to this rod. This would move this, and that would select your gears. You still have a clutch, which moves it and changes the gears. So for 36, 37, it was a pretty complex thing. Well, this is Larry's car, so special attention needs to be looked after for every little facet of it, because he's very particular. I treat these cars as if they're my own and want things done correctly. Everything has to work.
We're one of 180 cars that are participating in the Tour de Elegance this morning. Does the steering wheel work?
I think so.
There's the first big test. That's a motorcycle with a cop on it. It was good, you missed him.
I know.
This is a gentleman's tour. This is where the cars can go out and be seen in their element driving. Each of us is a little bit different. I mean, there's Ferraris here, there's great big Hispanos, there are Isadas, there's the Voisin. There's many, many different types of cars. So everybody has his place and everybody has his capabilities.
Oh, you just got passed by a Rolls Royce. Something wrong?
No, just no power.
She's not losing ground.
She's not gaining any.
No, maybe losing a little bit. Everybody lean to the right. Whoops, door just opened.
Oh my gosh.
We had quite an adventure on the tour today. It was very interesting. The car's, again, it's an 8CV car. It's 33 brake horse. So it's not exactly, a huge, big, giant engine. The geography is a challenge for the car because you're going up these narrow, winding roads, and some of these hills are pretty steep. And so, yeah, it's all that she can do.
Oh, this isn't good.
Nope.
So we're traveling up a hill during the Tour d'Elegance, and the Voisin really starts struggling.
Oh, this isn't good.
Nope.
Do you want me to get out? I'm serious.
You're gonna have to. Don't step on the running board.
So here we are in this lovely old Avion Voisin doing one of the most prestigious tours in the world, and the car is breaking down.
All right.
No, Dave, don't get back in the car.
He ran behind the car and the car started rolling back, and there's no way he could hold it. So my fear was that he was going to get hit, knocked out of the way, and run over.
I jumped out, and Ed's yelling, push, push, push. Push, push, push. I am pushing. And I started pushing, and I'm looking at the girls saying, get out, because I'm not winning. The car was invented to tootle around in Paris. It wasn't designed to go hill climbing in Carmel Valley. So, oh no, 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 no. This doesn't get any better than this.
Thank you.
I'm still running beside the car, Ed.
You should.
Okay, I'm letting you go now. It looks like the jetting in the carburetor might be off just a little bit. It runs good at low speeds, but as you demand more power, it sort of flags. But if it's running perfectly, it would still perhaps not have gotten up some of these hills.
Now I'm on my own. I'm doing fine, but now I got another hill. I'm like, swell. So I pulled to one side, backed up, and started going up in reverse. I learned a long time ago, you know, I've had a lot of old cars, but I had heard of old timers that if they couldn't make it up a steep hill, that they would back up these steep hills in these low, you know, powered horsepower cars. And so I made it up in reverse because that's my lowest gear, so it was fine.
We finally caught up to Ed. He's on another big hill. He's going up it backwards.
I don't know, it's always an adventure here. It's just such a great place, and you know things are going to happen with these cars. They break down, they're old.
To be at Pebble Beach is quite an honor and a privilege because all of the cars here are invited and they go through a selection committee, and I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of people that apply to be at the Pebble Beach Concours. And it's great when you can do it and everything works. It really sucks when it doesn't, but that's old cars.
This is the first time I've ever spent my time in the tour actually pushing cars up hills. To see a Ford Crown Victoria with a glass top in it was just like the ultimate car to us. And here is one, it's perfect.
Oh, that is adorable.
Once we caught our breath after the adventure of the Tour de Elegance, Jan and I went to the Bonhams auction as spectators, since we really didn't want to buy anything.
Lancia Stratos. I don't think you've seen one of these before in the flesh.
No, I have not seen one. It looks like something you would like.
A long time ago, when I was in my early 20s, I developed a passion for Italian cars. And there was a car designed by Bertoni that I was just completely in love with, and that was the Lancia Stratos. It looks original, but I mean, look at the shape of the car. Look at the cockpit, this beautiful glass on it. It's small, it was nimble. It was also the greatest rally car of its day. And they were basically designed as rally cars. They were incredibly fast, they were very hard to handle, and they were very unforgiving to drivers, you know, who acted foolishly with them. If you look up, the two most dangerous production cars ever built were tied for first place, Viper GTS, built in 1996, and the Lancia Stratos. Oh, now this is interesting. Now that we've got like 7 or 8 or 9 of these to sell in that collection. You know, at this auction, there is a Superbird. And, you know, right now we have some interest in Superbirds because we've been offered a large collection of them to sell for a client. So it's nice to see one here, and I wanted to know what they think it's worth. And, you know, I was pleasantly surprised, 140 to 180,000 US. You know, that looks very good for the collection that we're going to sell. Thing is, I don't know if this is an authenticated car. I know Bonhams do a good job, but these cars always worry me. Sometimes they're not real, even though they're passed off as real, and sometimes the owners don't even know that they were counterfeited 20 years ago. I hate to say sometimes we're the victims of nostalgia, but you know, when we first started off, this was our dream car. I mean, to see a Ford Crown Victoria with a glass top in it was just like the ultimate car to us. And here is one, it's perfect.
Oh, that is adorable.
It's even like outrageous colors, pink and white. That's really sort of 50s. The interior is beautifully done. It's a nice car. It's a great car. It's also one that appeals to us on an emotional level.
I'm almost done the wiring for the shifter on Larry's cord. We're working on getting the worn gears out and replaced inside the transmission. So when the engine comes back, we'll be ready to mate them together and reinstall it in the car. So I've gone through, and every wire is the correct color, and because there's 10 wires, they all have to be exact, go to the exact thing. So, you know, we had stripped everything, repainted it. I've got everything back together. It's just the last few things I need to do is finish up this soldering the last few connections. Last wire. I could make one mistake and one wire not hooked up correctly, it won't shift. So now we'll just go ahead and shrink all the plastic on there. And they're all shrunk on there. So I have no worries of any of the wires shorting out down the road. The connection from the steering column to the harness that goes to all the controllers, it's a specific 10-pin plug. There's a male and a female, and if Larry was to take this to a show and it didn't have that proper connector, it would definitely lose points. So to make it look exactly as it should, it's going to add to the value and add to, you know, the originality of the vehicle. So that's done and wrapped up. Ready to install. I was worried that some of the terminals on the switch would be, you know, they're 80 years old, right? So they all seem to be fine. I cleaned them and reused them and tested them all with an ohm meter, so I know that there's no breaks in it. So everything should be great. And whenever we get the engine and tranny back in and hook up the wiring, it should be good to go. So that's good. That's very productive for today. I'm happy.
What is important about a car like this is that this car has not been touched. This car here is a Delahaye D8. I find the subtle proportion and lines of this car absolutely fantastic.
We bumped into Peter Larson here, and I have huge respect for Peter. He's one of the world's authorities on French coachwork. He's a Pebble Beach judge. He judges many concours events. He's a legitimate expert.
It was built in France in the early 30s, and I love French cars. I love the proportions of French cars. When I approach a car, I always sort of pause about 10 feet away from it to get an overall impression of the balance of the car, the balance of the restoration. Does it present in a well-balanced manner? Note how it has hardly any ornamentation along the sides and how smooth the various parts of the body flow into one another. This, to me, is an incredible design. Of course, the windshield is about 6 inches tall, so if you couldn't see out of the windshield, hey, that didn't matter. It looked good, and that was the point.
This is such a hot rod from its period. It even looks like the roof has been chopped.
50s hot rodders may very well have seen pictures of these cars because the proportions really are rather wild, and they wanted to copy that.
Knowing Peter is great because I can ask him what Pebble Beach judges are looking for, which helps me when I'm preparing a car. You know, he gave me a couple of tips, Dave.
But every car starts with 100 points.
Yeah.
And then you deduct from there. The hood ornament was actually made in the 1930s, but they were actually quite rare in the 30s. And I would try and find out whether it had that hood ornament. And that would, if it didn't, that would be a deduction. I do the best I can to evaluate a car objectively for what it is, its originality and its authenticity, which means what was this car when it rolled out of the factory in 1930 or 1960 or 1923. I look for over-restoration, over-chroming, fancy paint jobs that the car would never have had when it was delivered, modifications that the car should not have. This is a Maserati Chamal. This car was designed by Marcello Gandini, who designed the Lamborghini Countach. It's a bi-turbo. It weighs 1,400 kilos. It's got 327 horsepower. It was built by Alessandro De Tomaso, who owned Maserati at the time. It has no ABS. It has no traction control.
It's a real car.
Because De Tomaso didn't believe in those things. Yep. So this is a car, when you drive it, you pay attention.
You know, Peter's dragged me over to this Maserati, and honestly, I know nothing about this car, and it could be the very first time I've ever seen it. If I saw one before, I didn't pay any attention. And within 2 minutes, he's turned me into a fan.
What is important about a car like this is that this car has not been touched. This car is in its original paint, original carpet, original leather, original everything. The only thing I as a judge can find on the car is that it does not have its original exhaust. So when you buy it, understand that you are the car's custodian.
That's right.
And leave it alone.
Yeah.
Maintain it, take care of it, treat it nicely, and it will treat you nicely. Don't start repainting it, and if you put other wheels on it, keep the old ones so that they can go with the car. Because right now, with the 30s cars, for example, those that have managed to survive in their original paint, they are prized. It's astonishing sometimes how much money people can spend decreasing the value of a car.
The car, yeah. This one is at like 125,000 plus. I mean, do you think that that's a fair price for this car?
They built 369. It's very rare.
Yeah. I will never run out of cars to restore, but you know, I would like people to sort of go, you know, this is really nice the way it is. Let's keep it this way. Oh, look. This is the Porsche I want.
Oh, come on, all these cars and you're gonna look at a tractor.
No, let me look at the Porsche.
No,
It's a
come
Porsche.
on. We're at this beautiful car auction with beautiful $1 million cars. The first thing we stop at is a tractor. I'm not sure what's wrong with Dave. He's going through something, but Dave's got this thing now about tractors. I don't know.
I really like this. I had to admit I have a problem. It seems to be growing lately. You know, I used to come to these events and just be knocked out by all, you know, $1 million Ferraris and Thomas Flyers and stuff like that. And I mean, they are really cool, but you know, it was a red Porsche that really caught my eye. I missed one of these like 2 weeks ago at a farm auction because somebody distracted me while I was bidding and it hammered down before I got my next bid in.
Yeah,
But-
that's a shame.
That was $9,000, and I'll lay you odds this is $40,000 or $50,000 through here today. I mean, maybe not that much, but that's what they've sort of been going for if you don't get them at a farm auction.
Yeah, it is a beautiful tractor. I really hope he doesn't buy it because I don't want to ship it all the way from California.
I'd be really interested to see what this sells for.
Come on. You
No, but
can't come to California and get a tractor.
I could actually.
Let's go look at Ferraris.